frozen ground. The thunder of the glass is the only sound. From the grace of the speed to the crushing weight, in the blink of an eye, we decide our fate. The ice is a battle where the iron reigns. We're breaking the surface and we're breaking chains. Brace for the impact, cross the line. The neutral zone is roaring through the night. IE Sports Radio, ice in our veins, and I'm Karnik and Freddie B, holding the reins. We follow the hunt for the silver cup, where the minor league hungry are stepping up. The college ice is burning in the freeze, and the women of the league bringing giants to their knees. The juniors, the legends, the global stage. We're writing the story on a frozen page. The lamp lights up, red in the winter air. The speed and the power are waiting there. Drop the puck. Brace for the impact, cross the line. The neutral zone is roaring through the night. IE Sports Radio, ice in our veins, and I'm Karnik and Freddie B, holding the reins. The neutral zone.
Welcome into the neutral zone here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I am Adam Karnik. He is Freddie B. Together, we do this thing, the neutral zone, every single week. So glad that you are here with us. We have got a ton to go through in tonight's show. We've got a new Stanley Cup champion to crown and celebrate and dissect. That series was outstanding. We will reflect on that, some of our favorite moments from it. And then the off season for the NHL is upon us. There's already been some moves. There's been some hirings. There's been some people that want to be hired that maybe they can't be hired. We've got to talk about that. And the PWHL is busy as well. The draft is wrapping up right now as we speak. They're finishing that up over in Detroit. The expansion process is just about complete for this offseason. A lot to go through there as well. A lot to dissect, a lot to go through. Some tampering, maybe it's just canoodling. How aggressive do we want to be? We'll get into that as well. Lots to go through, lots to do. It might be the middle of June, but there is still a lot of hockey to discuss. Before we go any further, of course, though, we do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. Go to planetjerky.net to place your order, whatever your taste buds like, whether it's the more savory or whether it is as hot as you can get. They've got something that your taste buds will appreciate. Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. And also thank you to Vital Apparel, the brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. When you go to vitalapparel.com, be sure to enter the promo code IESR at checkout, and you get 15% off of your order there. And IE Sports Radio is available for you on Twitter and YouTube at IE Sports Radio. This show is available for you at IESR Neutral Zone on Twitter. He is at Freddie B_sports. I am at Adam Karnik. And be sure to check out IESportsRadio.com. You can watch the show there. You can catch up on past episodes there. You can see all the other things that are happening around the network. And if you are watching live tonight across Twitter or YouTube, thank you for being here. Appreciate you doing so. Drop us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. What did you think of the Stanley Cup Finals? Is that your thought now? What are you paying attention to now that the offseason is here? Are you keeping up with the PWHL draft and everything that's been going on there? Let us know what's going on. Drop us a comment over in the chat, and we'll keep up with you that way there as well. But let's start things off with the Stanley Cup, because we have a champion. That gentleman right over there, he called it. He pegged it. Not only did he pick the winner, he picked the right number of games. I was off by a game. That's part of the fun. So
we both picked the winner, Adam, and for a while it didn't look like we picked correctly at all the way that the Stanley Cup final started. But when it was all said and done, man, Carolina, the Vegas could not build a fortress strong enough to withstand the surge of the hurricane. And that's basically what it came down to. A war of attrition. Carolina just kept pushing and pushing. Vegas's gas ran out of the tank halfway through game 5. And it was pretty clear in game 6 who the better team was. And I'm just happy that Carolina did it. I'm happy for Rod Brindamore. 20 years since they won it. And he won it and hoisted the cup, being the first to pick it up as the captain of the Hurricanes in 2006. And then his reaction doing it again here in the Stanley Cup final was great. I don't care whoever wins the trophy. I watch the game till the end, and I watch the handshakes, and I never turn off the cup celebration, because it's like kids on Christmas morning. The joy, the emotion that you see these grown men who are battling and throwing their bodies out and playing damaged and injured and all of this. And then they just have that, that relief that they did it and they accomplished something so great, the hardest trophy in all of sports to win. Adam, give me your take on this. Yes, we both had it right. I just got lucky picking it in 6. It would have been 5 as well, but
I thought back to the mullet. Barry Melrose would famously always pick the Stanley Cup final to go in 6 games, and sure enough, here it was. It was Carolina in 6. We'll break down game 6 here in just a minute, but the first thing that came to mind for me was this was a game where Carolina, obviously, you got to the end and you knew Carolina was going to win. It was the outcome was not in doubt for a good chunk of the third period, and especially when Ehlers got that third goal into the empty net, you knew right at that moment, okay, it is over, and Carolina could start. So I remember I tweeted out, I think with still like 5 or 6 minutes left in regulation, that Carolina can already taste it, that it was right there for them.
Yeah. Vegas was playing like a defeated team, They for long stretches of that game as well, Adam. There was a period of time where Vegas had 0 shots on goal for over 18 minutes.
Yeah, they went nearly an entire period with it. They went over a period where all they did was muster 2 shots on net. That's it. Brandon Bussey played incredibly well. Great job. He became the first year player to win the cup and pitch a shutout in almost 100 years. I think it was 1937 was the last time that had happened, I believe was the stat I saw on that. So, talk about something that just doesn't happen on a regular basis. It had been 5 years since we'd seen a shutout in the cup winning game. Yeah. So congratulations to Bussey and a job well done. But what stuck out to me was because you knew over the course of the final minute that Carolina had won, Vegas was playing with pride, but also knowing that it was just running out the clock at that point, that there was nothing they could really do to win the game at that point. Watching the Carolina bench was so much fun as it counted down, because they're all just jumping for joy and they just can't wait to get out on the ice and start celebrating. Kids on Christmas is the perfect description that you gave for that. And it's just,
I still just get the chills. Fun. I get the chills just talking about it. I've been there to witness it. I was there to see the Kings win both of their Stanley Cups, and there's I can't even describe the feeling. And I'm just a fan. I mean, to be a player and everything you've worked so hard for, and then it finally comes and you've done it. And you've battled adversity for years in Carolina. They just couldn't get out of the Eastern Conference final. And then I said this year, I think, was the year that they finally do that. And they got past, made their way to this cup final. And then they started this series, down 2-1 with it in Vegas. Carolina had to win multiple games on the road, which was incredible, thinking, how tough a place that Vegas was to play in, how with their fans and the atmosphere and everything, going on there. Carolina was the better team in Vegas in this series, playing on the road. It was just incredible. There's so many storylines too, Adam. I mean, we talk about, as the playoffs started and we're rolling, Freddie Anderson was very well, probably talked about as winning the Conn Smythe Trophy. And even coming into the Stanley Cup final, he was not on top of his game. And that's why Vegas, I think, took advantage of that early in this series. And then they bring in Brandon Bussey. And we already know what an incredible story he was all season long, And for him to be the one, to carry this team and win the final 3 games and to win the last game, obviously, in shutout fashion, that's, so great there. And then you've got, guys like Taylor Hall, he was a number 1 draft pick of the Oilers, had, some pretty bad seasons in Edmonton. And, then he goes to New Jersey and makes a couple other stops. And then he comes here and makes a huge impact. He wins his first cup. And Jordan Staal, what can you say about that dude? What a freaking beast.
6 goals in 6 games in the cup final. I think that right there says it all. The game ended and I immediately, it's Staal who's going to get the Conn Smythe. There was for me, it felt, it felt like a lock right then and there.
I thought the same. I thought he was the Conn Smythe had Carolina won after game 4. Just his ability to win faceoffs. He was winning, 15 to 17 faceoffs a game at almost 75% accuracy, winning the draws. He was a beast. He won so many critical faceoffs and he was just so hard to play against. And then he's a monster out there. You don't even realize, how big he is until he's on the ice with his teammates celebrating. That dude is a monster. He didn't have any problem, taking his body and throwing it out there and laying out hits and blocking shots. It was everything you wanted to see out of your captain. If there's, textbook what a captain should be in the NHL, it's exactly what we saw out of Jordan Staal in this Stanley Cup run.
Yeah, he played phenomenally, put the team on his back. And you brought up they were down early 2-1. They were this close to being down 3-0. Let's not forget how incredible it was that they came back in game 2. If they go down 3-0 heading into game 4, who knows? It would have been so obviously everything would have been different. Bussy's story too for the final is just so incredible. If for no other reason than Brindamore, when Brindamore pulled Anderson when he did, it wasn't a slap on the wrist on Freddie Anderson. It wasn't Freddie Anderson's playing poorly. It was, hey, this game's not going well. We still need you, buddy. We still believe in you. Clear your head. Get ready for the next game. We'll let Brandon finish up. And then suddenly the next thing you know, oh my gosh, Brandon's stopping everything in sight and we're scoring. And suddenly this thing's going to overtime. And I've got a decision to make here. And Brindamore, he had to do what he did at that point. You had to stick with Bussy. I think had you gone back to Freddie Anderson and it not worked, now maybe you've broken both your goalies' confidence, in one fell swoop. So he makes the right choice. It's a difficult choice, but it's ultimately the right choice. And you could see how much Freddie still meant to the team. Who was the first guy that got the cup after Captain Stahl? Freddie Anderson, who didn't play a minute of games 5 or 6. Simply in 4, 5, or 6, hadn't played since game 3. He's the first guy to get the cup.
You know who did play a few minutes in games 5 and 6, but I didn't even realize he was out there? Was Mitch Marner.
Yeah.
Mr. Invisible.
Yeah.
You talk about ghosting your way out, in games 5 and 6. I'll go over his stats in a little bit. What a disappointment that was. Jack Eichel was nowhere to be found as well. The two guys that you need to rely upon. Carolina, it was just a combination of them. I think what it is, Adam, and I'm going to say, I think it was game 3. That was the game, right, when Vegas was up to that 4-0 lead.
Yes.
And then Carolina scores the 3 goals in 30 seconds and end up tying it and then losing that game 5-4. I think that game planted those seeds of doubt into Vegas that they got to play better, to hold off this Carolina team. And at the same time, I think Carolina used that as motivation because they didn't look back after that comeback. They fell short. They made that amazing comeback, fell short, but they carried that into games 4, 5, and 6. And then it was all good night from that point.
Yeah. And it's, you had been kind of having some fun in the final game. You were playing Where's Waldo, only it was Where's Eichel. A lot of Vegas's stars just did not come out to shine, especially as the series wore on. Jack Eichel was a non-entity. Mitch Marner faded late. Carter Hart gave up 4 goals in every game except for the last one.
Sure.
But in the last one, it basically didn't matter because Carolina was just so overwhelming and so in the zone at that night. There was no way they were going back to Carolina without the cup at that point. That you could have had you could have put Patrick Waugh in his prime in there. And I don't think it would have mattered.
He wasn't out there scoring the goals,
Right. Exactly. What happened to Vegas's superstars? Where were they in this series? What went wrong for Vegas?
I don't know. After game 3 and into game 4, I don't know what happened. I think Tortorella started tinkering with the line combinations a little bit, and then that just wasn't working out. And at that point, he's already tinkered with the lines. Then he's got to try to get them back to where they were. A guy who was a huge disappointment for me was Rasmus Anderson in this series. I mean, he didn't look good on the ice. He took some really bad penalties as well. And you know what? Carolina finally was able to put that power play together that we talked about in the preview, how that had been their Achilles. And they finally they put it together. And they were able to kill penalties as well. They just shut down Vegas. I mean, Pavel Dorofeyev, he kind of was, here and there. A lot of guys that they just shut down. Like what happened to Ivan Barbashev after game 2? He was nowhere to be found again in the series. Carolina just played exactly how they needed to. And I'm just, again, happy to see that they finally came away winning the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it really, what went wrong for Vegas is Carolina just played to its potential, really is what it was for me. The Hurricanes were just so good, so strong, so dominant in this series and throughout the entire playoffs. And
16-3 throughout the entire playoffs.
Exactly. They didn't even need to play 20 games. You couple that with, what Montreal needed 14 games just to get to the Eastern Conference final, wasn't it? So, sweep in the first round, sweep in the second round, the gentleman's sweep or the delayed sweep, however you want to think of it, in the Eastern Conference final, where they had that unbelievably long delay from the end of the second round to the beginning of the third round. And then, all right, they fell behind. We talked about in the preview before the series, we said, neither of these teams have necessarily gotten punched in the mouth yet in these playoffs. What's going to happen when somebody gets behind? Are either of them going to be able to get up off the mat? Carolina was down 2-1. Carolina was this close to being down 3-0. And they got up off the mat. Brind'Amour got them back into playing. They win 3 straight, and they win the cup in incredible fashion. The look on Brind'Amour, we're so used to seeing when the cup gets passed around, obviously they raise it in celebration, they'll bring it down, they'll maybe do the kiss, and then they'll raise it up, and Brind'Amour bear hugs it. It almost, it was so funny. It was probably like the least graceful embrace you've ever seen. Cause I mean, he's making sure he doesn't slip and fall with it while he's on the ice. So he's got to, have his balance there, and you can tell the thing's heavy. I loved how they talked later that Brind'Amour had made all the players and coaching staff throughout the season come in and just randomly lift this 35-pound cinder block when they'd come into the locker room. And now it's, well, yeah, because that's how much the Stanley Cup weighs, boys.
Yep.
But here he is, and it's just this. It's just this. It's visceral. It was real. It was just, he finally had it back.
Yeah, he was hugging that thing. He didn't want to let it go. He was bear hugging that thing. He wanted it's been eluding him for 8 years, and he finally did it. And I mean, dude, that's the kind of guy that would get you to. He asks you to run through a brick wall, you're going to do it. I think that's how receptive all of his players are to him and his coaching style as well. Is they are all he needs to. I think one of the biggest things I think in the offseason is that he focuses on fitness with everybody on that team as well, and they have to have that same kind of mindset that Rod does. I mean, he's a fitness guru. You can just see how ripped he is and his endurance levels and everything like that. He's a beast, and he wants the same thing out of his players, and they showed up. Real quick, I was going to look at a few stats here.
Yeah.
Another thing that wasn't very good for Vegas was like their 5th and 6th defenders just weren't capable of making plays. As opposed to like Vegas, as opposed to like Carolina's bottom tier defenders. here, Jeremy Luzon in 6 games was a -5, no points. Dylan Coughlin in 5 games was a -4, no points. And those guys just made zero. They didn't do anything. They were getting scored upon. They don't offer anything offensively. Whereas a guy like Nikishin, who's so young, I mean, he was a -2 for Carolina. That was the worst among. I'm sorry, -3 in the Cup final. But you don't expect a whole lot out of him. I mean, Sean Walker was a -2, but he does so much on the ice. He blocks shots. You know, he kills penalties. He's out there taking hits. Keandre Miller was great. He was good as well. I think Carolina's all 6 of their defensemen just outplayed Vegas's defensemen. Yeah, I already talked about, you know, how Rasmus Anderson was, you know, disappearing as well. He took bad penalties, stuff like that. He, you know, not good on him. All he had was an assist. Noah Hannafin was kind of a disappearing act as well. Braden McNabb, who blocked that shot with his nose and busted his nose, he was their best defender, him and Shea Theodore. They were 2nd and 3rd on the team in points with 7 and 6, respectively. I mean, and those are, I mean, McNabb's not a guy offensively who you're really going to rely upon, but he played really well. And, you know, Shea Theodore is obviously a good offensive defenseman, but Carolina was just so much well-rounded in every aspect. And then when they go to Brandon Bussey, he was the number 1 for a lot of this season as well. He had, I think, 24 wins or something like that in the regular season. He was no Joe Schmo.
No.
He made his mark in the league and with the Canes. So it was perfect. And then you got a guy like, I think it was after Game 5, it was Johnny Lazarus, an NHL talking head on like X and stuff like that. He was at the press conference and asked Tortorella, why did you ever consider going to Aiden Hill to start the 3rd period in Game 5? And then Tortorella's retort, and it had millions and millions of views, was, that's the stupidest question I think I've ever heard. But in all honesty, you know, Hart was not good in this series, you know, and it was a fair question. And then obviously Hart plays his best game in Game 6, but Vegas forgot to show up and back him up by providing any offense. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yep. Yeah.
At least it's over with. We don't have to worry about Vegas, you know, hoisting another cup. And props to Carolina, man. That's just so good.
A tremendous job for Carolina. But now we transition, we go into kind of an off-season mode for a little bit. Now we've got the draft coming up here. You know, we've got the draft coming up, obviously, then free agency. We've got lots of things that will be coming in the coming weeks, but little bit of a downtime first. We've had some interesting things already. I want to, before we dive into the coaching moves, and I know you've got some thoughts on one of the coaches in particular, and we'll get into some of the ones here. I want to start over in Detroit. I want to start over in the Motor City, because it is not every year that we see the captain of any Original Six, but especially this Original Six franchise, asking for a trade. But that's what we've got going on here in Detroit, as Dylan Larkin has officially asked to get moved out of Detroit. And first of all, let's think about just that request right there to start with. You're the captain of the Detroit Red Wings.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just that you're going to the general manager asking for a trade. You're going to Steve Yzerman, who used to wear that C on that sweater with that logo that you're now wanting to ditch. That is,
that I was a little shocked by that, Adam. I didn't realize that there had been that Larkin was even, you know, considering, you know, wanting out of Detroit. And then he made it pretty clear that, you know what, there's only like 3 teams I wanted to consider. It was Minnesota, Vegas, and Florida. I think were the 3 team. Obviously, Vegas and Florida tax. There's no income tax, so that's an attraction for a lot of guys. Wanting to decide where they want to play. And then obviously Minnesota, they're an up and coming team. They're going to be a force. Is maybe they have to worry about what are they going to do with Quinn Hughes as well. But yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to think about the whole Larkin thing. I think I think more news will come. I don't know if maybe they can get him to stay in Detroit. I mean, the guy's fantastic, just coming off winning the gold medal too for Team USA. And the Red Wings are just close to making the playoffs the last couple of seasons. They're the closest team that's missed out over the last 2 seasons. And I like Larkin a lot. I mean, but if he does land somewhere or expands his options, there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to pay a good ransom to acquire him. A lot of teams are requiring a number 1 center right now. So we'll see what happens.
So Larkin is 30 years old. He has 5 seasons left on his current contract. He's got a full no trade, so he gets to he can pick exactly where it is he wants to go. And I'm over at Spot Rack to pull up all these numbers, so I'm not just pulling this off the top of my head. I don't know it that well. 8.7 million per year for the next 5 years is what he's looking at financially. How big of a commitment he is. The Red Wings themselves, they've got, one of the things that will always come up when you're talking about these things of, oh, will he stay or will he go? Nothing makes you more willing to stay like fresh paper with more zeros and dollar signs.
Sure.
It doesn't matter what the sport, nothing heals a wound quite like a shiny new contract will. The Red Wings have space, but they've already got him locked up for a lot of years. I don't know I don't know how likely an extension could be for him. I
don't know. I think now that the season's officially ended, we're approaching, July 1st, the draft. More rumblings will be coming up with this, and this is probably one of the biggest stories, really, because trust me, I would love Dylan Larkin to be the number 1 center in LA if he wanted to do that. And the Kings have pieces that they can trade. There's a lot of other teams that could trade for him, and we'll see if he expands on that or what happens. But yeah, it'll be interesting developments. I know BD Gaines here was asking about the Leafs. Let's go to the Leafs. Adam.
All right, let's go to the Leafs. Let's talk about Toronto. Let's talk about Toronto. It's such a sad place right now.
Yeah, they make a trade with the Flyers, sending in a goalie swap, John Wall going over and Samuel Ersson from Philadelphia heading back to Toronto. But I don't think Samuel Ersson is a number 1 or is going to be the Leafs number 1. So there's some issues with that. I mean, there's a guy in LA, Darcy Kemper, who can definitely be a number 1 still for your team and is a reliable goalie. There'll be talks about him, but that was the first thing. I mean, they did get some, and Philadelphia also got Simone Benoit in that deal coming to Philadelphia. So yeah, we'll see. And then they make a coaching change today. They make the decision to bring in Jim Hiller. I got the alert early this morning and I rolled over in bed and I shook my wife. I'm like, babe, is today April Fool's Day? She's like, will you just shut up? Why? And I show her this and it said, Jim Hiller has been named head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And she she died. She's like, "You've got to be kidding me." I thought it was a joke. And yeah, good luck in Toronto there, Big Jim. We loved you here in LA, and he's just going to get eaten to shreds by the Toronto media. I can't wait to see how he even survives the first couple of months. But that was a shock to me. There was talks about Babcock, Cassidy, Tortorella, and they go with this retread. He was an assistant coach under Babcock in Toronto at one point, but then they bring him in now, and interesting to say the least.
I mean, Hiller's record looks good. It was 93, 58, and 24. He's got experience in Toronto. He'd been an assistant under Babcock. Some people might say, "Oh, you were assistant under Babcock. Never mind, we're removing you from the list." But so you've got experience there. But yeah, it's the whole retread thing. It's what LA just got rid of this guy. Really, this is what you're wanting to do?
I know that. Okay, to Hiller's credit, and I was hard on him. I've been hard on him for the last 2 years. The Kings were a very good defensive team. They were number one, in goals allowed. They were also number one on 5-on-5 scoring and 5-on-5. I think like number 3 on 5-on-5 defense. So they played that 1-3-1 style of hockey. That was the one thing that Toronto was lacking, was defense. Now, if he can get those guys like Marner and I'm sorry, not Marner, but Nylander and Matthews, who are, strong offensive guys, to buy into that system, it could help. I don't know if they're the right guys and the right pieces there for that kind of system that Hiller likes to run. That's why I don't know how this is going to go. I think it's going to be to be determined. Just stay tuned, because I don't think it's going to be any better for Toronto, especially after the season that they just had. But who knows? Maybe he's a miracle worker and can do things up there. But we'll see.
There's a reason the Kings let him go. I'll just leave it at that. Speaking of the Kings, they let Jim Hiller go so that they could hire Peter Laviolette. Oh, I'm not a Kings fan, so I'm going to let you, by all means. The floor will be yours here in a moment. But I could just tell you, when I saw the news, when it came across, the first thing that came across my head was, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Here's yet another retread. We've seen this act before.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked Peter Laviolette. I mean, he was the coach of the Carolina Hurricanes when they won their first Stanley Cup. And I've loved his, career along the way. He's taken 3 teams to the Cup final. He's one of the only coaches to ever do that. This is the Kings now being the 7th team that he's coached here in the NHL. I thought the Kings were headed, and it was going to be maybe 70% Jay Woodcroft, the assistant coach for the Anaheim Ducks, and maybe like 30% Bruce Cassidy. And then talk about Peter Laviolette coming in. I wanted him a couple of years ago when they were first going through this whole thing with the coaches. I was like, okay, all right, I like it. And then the more I think about it, I'm like, I think this is the right guy in the right moment with the roster that the Kings have. They've got veterans on this team. And Tammy Panarin played for him in New York.
Yep. Kevin
Fiala played for him in Nashville. So he's got guys that have played for him that had some good success in the years that they played for Laviolette. And I think he's just the guy that's going to, put them over the edge. They've still got some pieces, the Kings do, defensively, and a couple pieces offensively that they could make, and they could, hopefully, Kenny Holland could work his magic in the offseason here. But I think they got the right guy in to coach. He's going to light a fire under them. He's going to, I think, make this team offensively better, who is very offensively challenged at sometimes. And if they can keep that same, kind of defensive structure that they've had, I think it's going to work out in their favor. So I'm happy Peter's here, and I can't wait. There's some moves that need to be made now, and then all will be good in LA again. But we just don't want to be, same song and dance as it was the time before with just somebody else behind the bench. There's also some moves that need to be made in order to make this franchise a little bit better right now.
Yeah. So Laviolette, he's 61 years old. He did not coach this past season. Took the year off. He's 846, 562, and 186. 23 seasons behind the bench. For me, I know that his teams usually that first season, oh man, you get the big punch, you get the big boost that first year.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. I like this. He has LA in his name. It must be right. Okay. Sure. I am underwhelmed. I know that there's past pedigree there, but how many teams has he now coached for?
This will be his seventh.
This will be his seventh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are we trying to go for like the full league special here? Is that what we're trying to do around the league in 80 days? It's time to retire. That's how I feel with it. I was very underwhelmed by the hire. Very underwhelmed.
I'm interested.
I don't hate it, but
yeah, I was kind of hoping, if they weren't going to get Cassidy, that Woodcroft was going to be the guy, because he's had success. He was successful in Edmonton, coached under a Kenny Holland run team. So there was that familiarity. I'm interested to see what assistant coaches that the Kings bring in to their staff here. If they're going to keep some of the guys that they had. They had Matt Green kind of running the defense at the end of the season. They definitely need somebody who can coach the power play better. And so we'll see. It could have been a lot worse, I think, with the coaching decision that they made. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it now.
All right. Well, and I hope it works. I obviously I have no ill will towards anybody on this. It just, for me, it was just such a, okay, fine. Here we go. We have the list of 10 coaches, and they just all cycle around. And
but I mean,
how do they wind up this year?
But he does have the he does have the resume, taking 3 different teams to the Stanley Cup final, a very young Flyers team in 2010.
Yep.
And then the Nashville team in 2017 that had a ton of young players as well. So with the veterans that the Kings have and their youth, I think I want to be a believer that this is gonna change things.
That 2017 Nashville team, that was probably his best coaching job too. That was a good team. That was a really good team. Speaking of other coaches that are on the carousel, that this one just can't seem to get off of it, apparently. Mike Babcock, the Oilers, they weren't allowed to hire Cassidy. Of course, now they are allowed to hire Cassidy. Vegas allowed that move. But as if there was any doubt that the reason they weren't hiring Cassidy was just to try to stick it to Edmonton. Now that Edmonton's trying to hire Babcock, Vegas is totally fine with him talking to Bruce Cassidy. They made that announcement a couple days ago. The Oilers are trying to hire him, and the NHLPA is basically saying, no, you can't. Nope, we're not going to let you do this. This is bizarre. This is a bizarre story. This is going to be fascinating to watch play out. It feels like there's something that like has been hiding under the surface that the players have known about, that the GMs should have known about if they didn't, that, oh, he's going to get hired again. Oh, well, no. We all kind of shook hands and agreed, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that we were all blackballing this guy. Why? No. You can't unblackball him now. We're going to go full nuclear here on this. This has been bizarre.
Yeah. And then the latest turn too is like, Elliot Friedman reporting that several agents of current Oiler players who are not part of the direct talks with Babcock are still raising concerns. So that's a red flag right there. I mean, that it's gone beyond just coaching at this point. It's everything else. With Babcock, I don't know, Adam. I mean, there's no doubt that Babcock's been a very good and successful NHL coach. It's just the baggage and everything else that comes along with it. And I don't know if, you know what, does McDavid want that tainted, and Draisaitl? Are they going to want to deal with this? There as well, because they're up against their possible final run at a cup before they get split and things go south for them. I don't know.
This is a massive decision that Edmonton has to make, because you just said it. You can see for the rest of the league, it's the light at the end of the tunnel for the Oilers and their fans. This is the end of the line you got coming up here. McDavid has 2 years left on his current deal. And then, they've got to make a decision. Bouchard, he's only got 3 years left. You've got decisions that you have to make, some very hard decisions. Hyman, Jari, McDavid, they're all coming out of contract here in the next couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
They've got a lot of money. They're already at cap. They're already in cap trouble as it sits. They've got about 15 million in cap space to play with right now. Some room, not a ton of room, not as much as you'd like, but they've got some tough decisions. This coaching decision in Edmonton, they have absolutely got to nail this, because this might be their last shot.
Yeah.
And if you've got players that are saying, hey, we don't like the idea of Babcock coming in here, you got to yank the chain on this. Then you've got to really listen to the players. You always have to be careful listening to, asking an employee, hey, who do you want to be your boss? You've always got to be careful juggling. There's a very, very, very fine line there that, but there is something to be said for, if you got players that are coming in saying, we don't want to play for him, and this is your last opportunity, Edmonton. It feels like, anyway, that this is Edmonton's last real off season to really make a run before they're going to have to make some really difficult decisions on what to do. Well, they have got to get this right.
One of the guys that's making a decision in Edmonton who wants out is Darnell Nurse. So he's already made it known that he doesn't want to be back. So that's a defenseman out there. Talks about him in LA, and I'm like, I don't know if I want this guy, because he was, a pylon up there. But I mean, maybe a change of scenery can be good. He's played for Ken Holland as well. There's a lot of time. I think, like you said, Edmonton has got to nail this coaching thing here, because I don't see it going in a good direction if they prolong this anymore. Then McDavid's already, he's probably thinking about wanting to get out after his 2 years are up, or say, hey, trade me now. But we'll see. But one more coaching coach of news today was Vegas. John Tortorella not coming back. I didn't think he was going to be. and they go right down into to Henderson there and go right from the Silver Knights and promote Ryan Craig.
Yep. So yeah, this is 2 teams this offseason we've seen do that, because Vancouver did the same thing just a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, we're seeing a couple teams now trying to do that. It makes sense. I like the thinking overall. If you've got a good style there that you're liking in your minor league system, then yeah, promote from within, bring them up, get that. It's a voice that everybody is already somewhat familiar with. So yeah, I like the move. I like that, especially you figured Tortorella probably wouldn't be back. But it does mean that now this is the 3rd head coach in the span of about 5 months for Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll hang on there and be there for a little bit.
Yeah, there's been a lot of success with AHL coaches coming up, and we saw it just this season. Marco Sturm, who was an AHL coach in the Kings organization in Ontario, he goes and coaches in Boston and led Boston to a fantastic season in his first year. And then you've got the coaches in San Jose, and Raharski, Ryan Wasarski. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing. But
you're getting closer than I would.
He was good, and a lot of these guys come out of that same kind of coaching tree. So we'll see. Vegas is going to keep it in house. They can save some money, and don't have to be a big spender. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, man, once that Stanley Cup is over, there's really no off season. I mean, the teams that don't make the playoffs, they get an early 2-month rest, but I mean, we're in the end of June here now, Adam, and then we've got, the draft, we've got free agency, and then by the time you know it, we're at the end of August, and rookie camps are going to be starting, and then we're right back into it. The longest regular season and the shortest off season, and the news is going to be filling the time between now and the end of the summer.
Absolutely. There's always going to be something to be going on about in the NHL. So yeah, the Stanley Cup is over, but that doesn't mean that the news cycle stops in the NHL. Always stuff going on, always stuff to be talking about and getting you through there. We've also got news throughout the PWHL that we need to get through. The expansion process is effectively done at this point. We've got the rosters are starting to line up, take shape. We've had the expansion teams have pulled some players. The draft was tonight over in Detroit. That has concluded. So we've got the results from that. All 6 rounds are in the books there in Detroit. So we've got all the new players there. It was not without controversy. This has been for as detailed and organized and with it as the PWHL seemed to be when they were starting this process, when the actual execution to me felt like it left a lot to be desired throughout. And there's no better example than what went down with Hillary Knight and everything that went on there. And to kind of paint the picture and try to make it be as succinct as we can.
Adam, please explain, because I thought she was going to Detroit. Wasn't that a done deal?
And she is ultimately in Detroit. Yes. I'm a Beatles fan. I'm a diehard Beatles fan. The long and winding road. She wound up in Detroit, which is where she wanted to be all along. But the way to get there, wow, did it get confusing. First of all, you have Seattle informing her, hey, we're not gonna renew with you. We're ready to move. Thank you for being our captain, our first captain this year. Thank you for all you did. We're moving on. Best of luck to you in the expansion process. She then winds up meeting with the delegate from Detroit, absolutely loves what she's hearing there, and tells them, yeah, you guys don't even worry about claiming me on one of your expansion spots. Use those for other players. I'm going to sign with you guys. Don't worry about it. Only for Vegas to then come in and use one of its expansion spots on Hillary Knight, which that was where the monkey wrench really got thrown in at that point. And whether you want to say it was Vegas tampering or whether it was Hillary Knight tampering, it didn't work the way it was supposed to. That's the long and the short of it here. I mean, if I'm Detroit, I would have told her, no, we're still using one of those spots on you to be safe, because I don't want somebody else to come in and do what they did. If I'm Detroit, I wouldn't have assumed that she would have made it through. That just, to me, that was the mistake right there. You're talking about, she was the captain in Seattle. She was the captain of the Olympic gold medal winning team. She's not going to, Seattle didn't protect her. There's no way she's making it through this process. If I was Detroit, I would have told her, thank you for saying that, but I'm going to use one of my spots on you just to be safe. They don't. Vegas instead uses one of its spots to snatch her up, which, I mean, there were domino effects falling everywhere with, you had players who were, well, Hillary's going to go to Detroit. I want to go play with Hillary, so I'm going to go sign with Detroit. As they hit the third phase, is, well, I'm going to go sign with Detroit because I want to go play with Hillary. Wait a minute, Hillary's in Vegas? Oh, but I signed in Detroit. I want to go play with Hillary. Now, how do I get myself over to Vegas? Oh, wait, she's not going to play in Vegas? Oh, she's trying to, my sister reminding us here. Yeah, but they also wanted Watts. So Detroit had to make the decision there. And ultimately they decided, well, Hillary's going to be safe, so we'll claim Amelia Watts instead. And the whole thing, it got to be so convoluted. So instead you wind up with Detroit and Vegas making a deal where, once the draft order gets set, yesterday, once the draft order was set and rosters were no longer frozen, Detroit sent its first ever draft pick to Vegas for Hillary Knight, the player that they wanted all along and probably should have just claimed in the first place.
Yeah. Vegas gets the number 3 overall pick out of it.
Vegas gets an extra first round pick out of it, which it then used on Tessa Janicki out of Penn State tonight. So they use that pick right away. And then a couple picks later, they take another forward, Lacey Eden out of Wisconsin. So going offense heavy there in the first round for Vegas. But yeah, a very strange saga there. And it's definitely, it's left with, perhaps they didn't think this out enough when they were coming up with all these rules and how all this was going to work in the PWHL. Perhaps they should have put a little bit more thought into this. They definitely should have put some more thought into the draft order too.
Yeah, I think because this was an expansion draft as well, with 4 new teams entering it, and all those phases and everything, Adam, I think they're going to have everything corrected next year. There shouldn't be any reason for any of these phases or anything like that. And you just go back to how it was selected before. Yeah, Vancouver selected number 1 and Seattle number 2, right? Because it was
correct.
The current rule in play for the teams that did not make the playoffs, that they were granted those spots, correct?
Yeah. So, well, the gold plan ensured Vegas number 1, and that was the only thing the PWHL
Right.
agreed on at that point. Was they said, look, Vancouver will be number 1.
Mhm.
That is locked in. They had nothing else set in stone. It was obviously okay. They didn't need to say it, but obviously Montreal was going to pick last. They were probably, it felt like, okay, the playoff teams are going to go after the expansion teams. That only feels right. What they wound up with, though, and it finally didn't get announced until yesterday, they came up with a draft order where it was Vancouver was locked in at 1, Seattle was 2. Then you had all 4 of the expansion teams, boom, 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 all in a row. Then New York and Toronto, who they also weren't playoff teams, but they wind up after the expansion clubs. And then you had the playoff teams in the order, from their point standings and when they got knocked out: Minnesota, Boston, Ottawa, Montreal, in that order. What I never got any clarity on, and I did some digging, couldn't find a straight answer on what they said they did for the expansion teams is they effectively did a lottery. That makes sense. That's the only way you could do it fairly, was to just put them in a lottery to assign the order. What I would like to know, you had the 4 teams that missed the playoffs. You knew Vancouver was going to be number 1. They were locked in. Were the other 3 teams that missed the playoffs then, were they included in that lottery? And we just coincidentally wound up with all 4 expansion teams in a row, but Seattle jumped them? Or did they just randomly decide, no, Seattle's going to finish, is still going to get the 2, then we're going to bump New York and Toronto back? That I'd love to get some clarity on that. And I have not heard, read, seen that. To me, I'd really like to hear an explanation on that, because it feels like they took Seattle, New York, and Toronto and added them into the expansion draft lottery pick with the 4 expansion teams. And if they did that, why? Why would they do that? That's because it feels odd. I always said what I would have loved to have seen them do for the draft is you have the 4 gold plan teams draft in order: Vancouver, Seattle, New York, Toronto. Then you have the 4 expansion teams, have your lottery system, roll dice, flip coins, play cards, whatever it is you pick appropriate to come up with an order for them. Then you have your 4 playoff teams. That just felt like the closest way to do it as fairly as possible.
Yeah, that's I don't know, Adam, because Seattle, was the worst team with only 31 points, but New York was 7th, and they ended up getting the 8th pick or 7th pick.
They wound up 7. They wound up at 7th,
and they had the 2nd worst record. But then the gold plan kind of went
against them.
It's interesting. I want to know how they did that. Or was it their intention just to have the 2 at the bottom with Vancouver and Seattle, then lottery the 4 expansion teams, and then just go back up the ladder by record? But I don't know.
Yeah, it
doesn't make
it felt strange. It felt strange. And a good Seattle did have some points in the gold plan. I don't know if that would have spared them at all and see, these are good questions to be asking of the league. Ultimately, how did they arrive at this? Because it does feel random, and it does feel odd that Seattle wound up in front of all the expansion teams, but New York and Toronto wound up behind them. It's just a strange
I don't understand it.
Sequence. So, but they wound up with the order. They kept the same order through all 6 rounds. They did not do any kind of round robin or snaking or shuffling of anybody around. It was once the order was set, it was locked in. So the order wound up being Vancouver, Seattle, Vegas, San Jose, Detroit, San Jose, Vegas, Hamilton, New York, Toronto, Minnesota, Boston, Ottawa, and Montreal. That wound up being the order. We do have the entire draft is complete at this point. We're not going to go through every single pick, but we'll go through the first round here real quickly. The first overall pick in this year's PWHL draft, a defensiveman from the University of Wisconsin, KK Harvey, went number 1 overall. So she became the newest Vancouver Golden Eye out of the University of Wisconsin. Then Abby Murphy, she was the one that a lot of people were keeping an eye on, wondering where she was going to end up out of Minnesota. She went 2nd overall to Seattle. So the Torrent getting themselves a good young forward there at number 2. Then Vegas wound up picking 3rd because of the Hillary Knight trade. They took Tessa Janicki out of Penn State. San Jose, its first ever player, Layla Edwards, its first ever draft pick, Layla Edwards, defenseman, also from Wisconsin. So the D pairing there from Wisconsin both going in the first round. Lacey Eden, also of Wisconsin, another forward, went to Vegas. Hamilton took Nellie Leitinen, defenseman out of Minnesota. She was the first non-North American to be taken in this year's draft out of Finland. Nellie Leitinen out of Finland. Then Emma Peskel, defenseman from Ohio State, went to the Sirens. Kristen Sims went to the Toronto Scepters out of University of Wisconsin. Defenseman Sarah Swiderski out of Ohio State went to the Minnesota Frost. So the Frost trying to help their blue line here early. Grace Dwyer, another defenseman, this one out of Cornell. She went to the Boston Fleet. Vivian Jungles out of Wisconsin. She then goes up to Ottawa to the Charge. And then Petra Nieminen was the last pick in the first round and the first non-NCAA player to be taken in this year's pick out of Luleå of the Finnish SDHL League. She went 12th overall to Montreal. That was the first round tonight. The entire draft is done. We'll go through that and have some write-ups and reactions on that later. But that was the first round of the PWHL draft tonight. A lot of defense.
A lot of defensemen, 9 U.S. players out of the 12 picks.
A lot
Good
of
stuff.
and a lot of Wisconsin, a lot of Minnesota, a lot of defense. Yeah, just only a couple of international picks, non-North American picks, I should say, both from Finland. We did have the first goalie went in the second round. Andrea Brandli from Frandula was of the Swiss league. She was the first goalie taken. She went to Detroit. My sister was very crestfallen when that happened. She was really hoping that Seattle would take her. She's been keeping an eye out, and we need goalies. We need goalies. We need goalies. Give us goalies. And they passed on that. So I was actually gonna look to see if
Seattle didn't take a goalie until the 62nd pick overall in the 6th round. Gabriella Durante from Real Torino in Italy.
All right. And she played on the Olympic team in Italy. So they did take a goalie. They did take one with Olympic pedigree, just obviously not one of the first teams you think of when you think of Olympic hockey, not one of the first nations you think of, but they did ultimately do that. So, but yeah, some interesting things to still go over there from the PWHL. It seemed like they had a good plan in place at first. It seemed like the execution left a lot to be desired when it was all said and done through this expansion draft. But now they are basically on to regular free agency at this point in the PWHL. The 4 expansion teams will obviously get to work on settling on what their nicknames are going to be and finalizing their rosters and things like that. But a successful draft event out there in Detroit tonight.
Yeah, that's big. And then we have the NHL draft in a week.
Coming up here in just a week. Is that this weekend or is that next weekend?
The 26th.
The 26th. So coming up, we'll preview that a little bit next week. We'll have some thoughts on that. I'm sure we'll have to get Mike Pat involved. He loves anytime we talk draft. Doesn't matter what the draft is.
The first 4 picks I think are outstanding. Now I just saw an article earlier today, like, can Ivan Stenbar, be the number 1 overall instead of Gavin McKenna? I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, Stenberg's an outstanding player. I think he's going to land in the lap of your Hawks, Adam. I hope that's how it goes. But man, if he takes over number 1, I mean, and then it could just be a different, domino effect from that point on. So we'll have a whole week and we'll talk about that. We'll do a preview of that next week because the draft is next Friday. So we'll definitely go in depth on that. A couple of other NHL moves real quick that happened today and yesterday. Ross Colton traded to the Predators by the Avalanche, and Adam Kesselring from the Buffalo Sabres is traded to the San Jose Sharks. So we had a couple of smaller moves over the last couple of days with all the coaching stuff. And then, I think we're going to see quite a bit of movement over the next week before we get to the draft. And then things will really heat up from the draft till we get to free agency. Adam, I think these are the two exciting weeks coming up. This is where your team really could make itself and make it, get those players locked in for next season. So a lot of good stuff to come. This NHL season was fantastic. I can't believe it's over already. We, doing this show with you every week, the entire season was just fantastic. And I think we did an excellent job of covering the NHL. Adam, there was so much excitement. There was so much drama. I mean, we had so many storylines. It was a fantastic season, and it was just an incredible ending to this 25-26 NHL season.
Indeed. It was a fun season, had a lot going on, but now hope springs eternal for everybody. Now nobody's got any points in the standings. Everybody's even with everybody else. It turns around just that quickly, and everybody will start flipping their clocks right away next week, and we'll do it with them, getting ready for the draft. That's going to do it for our show here tonight. Thank you to everybody that tuned in tonight across Twitter and YouTube. All 93 of us watching tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Be sure, once again, check out our sponsors. Thank you to them. Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. And, of course, be sure to check out Vital Apparel as well. And check out the website, iesportsradio.com. Keep up with everything happening here at the station. Tons of things that we keep going on for you. That's going to do it for our show here tonight. For IE Sports Radio, for Larry B., the czar and overlord of all things IE Sports Radio. He is Freddie B. I am Adam Karnik. Together, we do this crazy thing called the Neutral Zone every Wednesday night. We'll be right back here next week, breaking down, getting you ready for the NHL draft, and we'll see what other stories I've come across in that time. Have a great week, everybody. We will see you next time.
Good night.
Is the only sound from the grace of the speed punching weight. In the blink of an eye, we decide our fate. The ice is a battle where the iron reigns. We're breaking the surface and we're breaking chains. Brace for the impact. Cross the line. The neutral zone is roaring through the night. IE Sports Radio. Ice in our veins. And I'm Karnik and Freddie B. Holding the reins. We follow the hunt for the silver cup, where the minor league hungry are stepping up. The college ice is burning in the freeze, and the women of the league bringing giants to their knees. The juniors, the legends, the global stage.